Kaempf.
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling up the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He hath loosed the fateful lightning from his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. In the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea, with a glory in his bosom that transfigures you and me. He hath died to make men holy. Let us live to make men free, while God is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on.
Thank you.
Well, hello everyone. This is Steve Kaempf with the People, Not Titles podcast. And today is a special treat. We're here on, what's the golf course name, Ed? Eagle Brook Golf Course, where Ed Finnegan, my guest, has his home. The sun is coming up. It's a little brisk, but we're at Patriots Corner at my good friend Edward Finnegan's place. And people, we were talking before and say, is this staged for this podcast? And no, this is a true area of Ed's yard that is dedicated to patriotism and just recognizing veteran service. And so, Ed, welcome to the broadcast. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Steve. My pleasure to be here.
Excellent. So, Ed is a U.S. Navy veteran. And so, Ed, let's just get right into it and talk about how did you get into the military? What was the inspiration behind it?
Well, Steve, thanks. I grew up in a military family. My dad was in the Navy. My grandfather was in the Army. And my uncle was in the Army as well. And I got to see these men in my life that were role models for me. And they were about service and caring for others. And at a young age, I was inspired by all occupations of service, police, firemen, and I just grew in a family that had rendered respect for those occupations, and that our freedom is based on being able to keep our borders safe. And there were all kinds of folks out there invested in that for us and our country.
I remember you said you have a saying that freedom's not free.
Freedom's not free, and it's not. And so there's folks out there right now today that are paying the price for our freedom.
Amen to that. So, Ed, so the Navy, what had you chosen the Navy and the particular program that you got into?
Well, my dad was a Navy man, and he had kind of a interesting phrase about why he liked the Navy, and what it was you always got your rack with you, as opposed to Army where you're in a foxhole here and a foxhole there. So that's more of a humorous note, but I was inspired by water. I had a degree in marine biology, and I had a love for the water and love for service, and I was inspired from a young person going to air shows and seeing military presence in our country, and just seeing people that were well respected and that were giving themselves to serve.
All right, well, so Ed, and then you got into the submarine program. So tell us just a little bit about your career there.
So I was inspired in my senior year of college to go into the military, and I found that the best fit for me was going to be going into submarine force. And I was inspired. It's amazing how certain doors open in our lives. Many doors opened. I ran into friends of mine whose fathers were in the submarine force, friends, brothers, uncles, and I just became immersed in this group of folks that were inspiring me and promoting me to get involved in it. And I looked further, and things started to come together. And I actually went to early entry in my senior year of college and signed up. After I went through a rigorous interview process, I did actually have the pleasure of interviewing with Admiral Hyman Rickover, who's the father of nuclear energy in the Navy.
Nice.
So that was a true privilege that I had to interview with him. And so it's just been a remarkable way how these doors opened for me. And as I went through them, it just kept going and going. And next thing I knew, I was at Officer Candidate School in Newport, Rhode Island in June of 1980.
Wow. So Ed, and then you served on the San Francisco.
Correct.
So how long was that stint?
So 3.5 years on board the ship, starting in 1982 after all my training, and then I was on the ship until October of 1985, in which point I went to shore duty. But during that time, we had many deployments, many times underwater, and it was very exciting. And I had the physiology and the DNA to live in those close quarters, which was comfortable to me. I didn't feel claustrophobic at all. I just had a sense of security actually with the closeness of the quarters, and it was a real good fit for me.
And Ed, right now there are people floating around with a tube under the water.
Right now they're out there and defending our borders.
Yeah. So Ed, then what? So then how long total were you in the military?
So I was totally in 20 years. What I did was I went 8 years active duty, and then I got out. When I got out in 1988, I went directly into the reserves. Had a civilian job that supported me fully, and for the next 12 years, I was drilling 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks a year as active duty member for the next 12 years.
Wow. So one of the reasons that we actually did this whole podcast veteran series, and why I wanted to feature Ed, is because Ed inspired me last year. I believe, was it last year?
Yes.
Okay. Ed inspired me last year. Ed works now for Exelon, and Ed, they had a whole pamphlet or brochure dedicated to the veterans that worked at combat in Exelon, and how they, all the amazing things that they got out of serving in the military, the way they served. It was beautiful, it was inspiring, and it really led to us doing this veteran series for real estate agents, business people, with the People Not Titles podcast. So let's talk just a little bit, Ed, about how your service in the military prepared you to contribute in the workforce.
Well, thank you, Steve. That's a great question, and I would say that for anybody deciding to go into the service and make the commitment, it's based on a series of reasons. And one of the reasons is, am I going to be better for it? And I would say absolutely. I got the best training in military, nuclear power, etc., and it had totally set me up for not only the knowledge of those systems and being able to contribute, but also in leadership and being under fire with a group of folks that have to get something done, managing everything they're going through, helping our team advance. And so it's just an amazing educational process for me to learn these skills and be able to take them to the workforce. And there's companies out there that strictly drive recruitment of veterans, and I got to be a part of one of those companies, and they found me a job that fit really well for me, and it's been a great ride, and I've just accessed my training all the time, every day, and it just keeps getting better as I work now in the workforce.
So Ed, what's your role now with Combat Exelon?
So I'm the manager of Exelon Construction Services. So I'm in the supply chain. I'm a purchasing manager, and we run the big bids for construction work in distribution, transmission, substation, work on the grid that provides power to folks here in the area. And we actually have 6 utilities across Pennsylvania, Maryland, New Jersey, etc. And so across those 6 utilities, our team is putting together the bids to award contractors of choice business to improve our electrical infrastructure and build substations, connect lines, transmission lines, etc.
Well, and I've spent a lot of time with Ed, and I just hear so many leadership stories and so many life lessons that you've been able to garner from your military service. And so I thank you for your service, Ed, and thanks for just the friend you've been. So I'd be remiss without talking a little bit about how Ed was able to pass the baton of passion for military service to my family. I have 4 daughters, and my second oldest daughter, in maybe 5 years ago or so, Ed noticed something in her, and my daughter started her ROTC program, worked her way through college, is now an officer in the Army, and last night was her first night stationed at Fort Bliss at the hospital, her first night, first shift, and in El Paso, Texas. So Ed, let's just talk a little bit about young people. What is it that you saw? I have 4 daughters, you interact with all of them, but you saw something in Shayla that had you go, I think this person might be a good fit.
Well, first of all, I would say I saw a certain mental toughness in Shayla, and when I would speak with her, she was also very fit, very strong as a young woman, and athletic. And I saw her also exhibit leadership presence. I'd be talking to her, and she would share with me how she would be working at Portillo's, and they immediately made her, after a short time there, she went immediately into supervision. And she would share with me stories about how she would see a problem and be able to surround it with her staff and move everybody through solving it. And I just said, that's exactly the type of person that succeeds in the military. People that have get up and go, problem solving, but with others, and collaborative leadership. And that's what I saw.
Awesome. Well, we thank you, Ed, because it's been an amazing journey that has really brought the best out in her, and has created, because of the awareness it's created with me, it has created just a raised respect for everyone who served. So I just want to say thanks for being on the podcast today. Thanks for your service. Thanks for the way you built into my family. And what a beautiful morning. I think we've crossed into the 30s now here as we sit on the bench. So as the sun began to shine. So thank you. It's People Not Titles podcast. Lieutenant Commander Ed Finnegan here with us on a beautiful morning, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Steve Kaempf with the People Not Titles podcast. And as you know, we've been having our veteran series. And this is This is part B of this veteran series, which features Edward Finnegan, commander of the USS San Francisco, retired Navy veteran. And now, to close out the series, we have my daughter and a U.S. Army nurse, Shayla Kaempf. Shayla, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. So, Shayla, we're really we're really talking to professional veterans and military people as a part of the Veterans Day month, and now we're into December, and we're talking to them about just how they got, what inspired them to get into the military, how it's impacted them, and how it's affected their professional life as well. And so one thing we didn't have this whole time is someone who is active duty. And so you are an active duty, you're a young person, you're active duty, you come from just a fantastic family line. I don't know what's so funny about that. Anyway, so why don't you just tell us just about your military journey? How'd you get started? What first inspired you?
So I didn't hear what Ed had to say from before, but basically I would say the whole reason I joined was because of Ed. Well, not because he inspired me to join, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't join for him, but he inspired me to join. I grew up doing sports, and I like needed structure and organization, and was homeschooled, and which is a whole another
Whole nother thing. Yeah.
but like having structure in my life, and then graduating high school and being like, oh, I don't know what the next step is for me. Like I had all this structure, and now it's like I have all these decisions to make, and like I have all this time, I don't really know what to do with myself. And Ed was like, if anyone is made for the military, like I think it's you. You should try it out. I remembered it was in our driveway. And he was like, you should just give it a try. Like there's a program down the street at Wheaton College, and he was like, you should just go try it out and see what happens. And I tried it out, and the first day was awful, but after that it got much better, and turned out to be the exact structure that I needed. And then I transferred to Olivet Nazarene University and started the nursing program, and so that was a whole nother form of structure that I needed, and having ROTC to help me keep my grades up, and having the mentorship through that, and working out and having the fitness and learning all of these military things that I've never even had anything to do with, since like neither you or mom are in the military. So because a lot of the kids in the program are military brats.
Mm-hmm.
So just like having
So
learned all
what?
those good things.
Okay, so you covered a lot there, and I want to unpack that a little bit. So your ROTC experience, you went through your first year as an ROTC person, and you both were kind of sizing each other up. The Army was sizing you up and saying, "Is this a girl that we want to invest in?" And you were sizing up the Army, saying, "Is this something I want to commit to?"
Right.
So, why'd you say yes? Why'd you say this is for me?
Oh, that's a tough question. I think that it took me like a little while, because I did, community college for a year, and so I was trying to figure out what exactly like my whole game plan was. And the recruiter that I talked to laid it all out for me, and he was like, this is like, we'll pay for your entire school, like just for you to like have a guaranteed job after
Mhm.
college doing exactly what you want to do. Like I'm not going to be like a transportation officer or anything like that. Like you'll be an Army nurse, you'll get sent somewhere in the country to do it, guaranteed job, no like paying back of your loans or anything. And you have like it was a great college experience, I would say. So I think
Mhm.
that was it. But yeah, like you said, it took a whole year for me to, get my contract and figure out if it was even something I wanted to do. So.
Mhm. And you chose nursing, and so then you showed up at Olivet University. And what was the ROTC experience there at Olivet?
I would say it was a lot different than the one at Wheaton, even though we were all together. Wheaton had more of like they were like very serious, where like all of that was serious, but it was more like, hey, we're all like stuck in Bourbonnais, like we're a
Mhm.
family,
Mhm.
I got your back. So it
Mhm.
was a really cool experience there.
And then you had a chance, in very short order, to start leading people. And how did you
Yeah.
feel? How did you feel about that? About having your leadership, um, innate leadership, skills, kind of brought out.
It was, because you're such a young kid, you're like trying to get your crap together in college,
Mhm.
like trying to
Yep.
schedule yourself, and then all of a sudden you're in charge of these like snot-nosed freshmen, trying to get them to show up to do stuff.
Yep.
And so it tests you a lot, but it was really cool, and I think I needed that. Like it really, other people were just focusing on nursing school, and I was like, I have like 1.5 million other things to do and people to worry about, and it really was testing, and it was good. It was good for my growth.
Hmm. And then, okay, so then you graduated. So congratulations there. But before you graduated, you actually went to advanced leadership training out at Fort Knox, and that was an amazing time. So tell us, what is that like for a young person to go off into the hot summer sun? What was that like?
I think it was eye-opening, because ROTC, people kind of make fun of it sometimes because it's like pretend army, you don't really.
Hmm.
And so going out there, it was like, shoot, this is like, I'm gonna be in the army, and like I'm
Hmm.
gonna have to do these field exercises. We didn't shower for like 12, 14 days. Like it was just like, it was very like testing, because you're used to just like being in college and doing ROTC and just showing up. But this was like
30 days of like, you know, in the field, carrying a rucksack, just like it was pretty tough, I would say. So, but it was good. It was good. It made me realize that even though it sucked, like it was something that I wanted to do. So I'm glad I did. I made the decision to join.
And you've come out of your experience in ROTC before you went to active duty with a lot of phenomenal relationships. So maybe just talk about that.
Like relationships in ROTC or
Yeah, relationships in ROTC, people that you've built into, people that are your peers that you're working through it with, and then people that were actually leading you.
Sure. So the nursing program was really tough for me because I just, you know, really, I'm not a great test taker. So I had a couple girls ahead of me who literally would meet with my teachers and be like, hey, like, what do we got to do, like, to make this, like, you know, to help her, you know. So they weren't just like selfish people. They took time to, you know, take care of me too. And when I went to like basic officer leadership course, they were stationed there and, you know, they're reaching out to me. We talk all the time, almost every day. So, and like if I have questions even now, because they're doing the same thing as me, if I have questions or like if I'm like, hey, is this right? They're like, no, like you need to, you know, ask about this. And so that was really cool. And then people from the advanced camp, I actually got to see later on at a different training because it's small Army. And so that's cool. You know, you build relationships everywhere and then you end up, you're like, oh, I'll never see you again. And then it's like, dude, what the heck are you doing here? Like, you know, it's just really cool. So it's worth it to build relationships and actually try.
Well, that's great. And then you graduated, and then COVID hit, right? And you eventually got your orders to report to Fort Bliss in El Paso. And so just talk about, so now you're stationed at the hospital. Do you feel like the Army nursing program prepared you to be a nurse?
I think so. I think that, you know, you don't like, it's like every other job, you kind of have to like learn as like when you get there, you're like, oh, like school did not teach me this. Like, what the heck? But I think that, you know, we did another month-long training in Georgia for nursing, and that I would say really prepared me because they're like, you're going to be a nurse. You might as well do everything you're going to be doing as a nurse right now anyways. So they were like, go do. And so I think that prepared me the most. But it's been like, you know, it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
Work.
And now yeah, it is tough work. Now you're basically full-time employed now. You're down in El Paso. You have your own apartment. You know, are you 24?
Yeah.
Okay, congratulations. So you're 24 years old. You're an officer in the Army. You're a registered nurse. You have your own place. You are, you know, you have a cool Jeep.
Love my Jeep.
So, you know, from all you've seen in the Army, how, you know, and granted, I had very little to offer in the way of insight or even knowledge about, you know, military things other than just some veterans that I knew. How do you feel about just serving the armed forces and that kind of thing? What's your feeling after your, you know, 4 or 5 year experience here?
I mean, it's been like nothing but rewarding so far. I mean, I'm just literally in the beginning stages of it. So I'm just excited. Like there's always room for growth is what's exciting about it. And so that's probably
there's always a track to go up, right?
totally. Yeah.
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 So you
There's
feel
no
like you have a career path.
totally. Like I can choose to stay in or I can choose to get out. I can choose to travel wherever, you know. So, and with nursing, the opportunities are endless. So civilian nursing is, you know, so many opportunities with that too. So
That's great. And do you feel like being an Army nurse, do you feel like if you got into the civilian workforce, you have a leg up in any way from the others because you actually served in the military and are a nurse?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it probably looks really good on a resume to show that, you know, I served. And they have all kinds of training opportunities that like I haven't even gotten to see yet. Like even just the beginning of like this orientation phase, like is very in depth. You know, it's accredited. They make sure you know what you're doing. So just that in general, I would say puts me as a better
in a good
perspective
spot.
higher. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. And so now, Shay, just talk a little bit about, you're in El Paso, and El Paso's a hot spot right now, right?
Sure.
For COVID. It's one of the, is it one of the hottest spots in the country?
Hmm.
Yeah. And so what's it like? How do you feel about just going to the hospital every day? What are you seeing with your fellow medical, the medical professionals that you work with? What's the vibe down there right now?
I mean, everybody, it's Texas, so I think everybody's kind of just like living their life,
Okay.
wearing their mask, some not wearing their mask.
Yeah.
But I mean,
And what's it like in the hospital? I mean, there's the COVID floor. What floor are you on there?
I can't really speak to that, but just for,
Medical reasons.
yeah,
Or privacy. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Oh, cool.
But
Yeah,
I would say
if you
like,
tell me you have to kill me type of thing.
no, I don't know. No, maybe. No, I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
so.
Right. I get it. Okay. Fantastic. We won't talk about that. What we do know is it's a hot spot, and there's a lot of courageous people going in and out every day, working and serving people that are,
Yeah, yeah.
that are,
The civilian
sick.
hospital is like definitely, you see it in the news. Like it's been in the Chicago news. I've seen that the El Paso hospitals, like
Mhm.
it's insane. And it
Wow.
might be our location, and you don't know, but it's been insane, and nurses are quitting their jobs. So
Wow.
props to nurses that have been doing this for a long time. I just am starting.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And so, okay, if there's a young person out there that's watching this that is thinking about, should I get into the military, whatever, what advice would you give them before they take the leap?
I would say the one thing is, are you willing to leave your family? I think that's just like, because for any young kid like coming out of high school and is like, I don't know what I want to do, I'm gonna work at the local Target, fine, like that's great, but
Mm-hmm.
like if you want some structure, like I think that like joining the military is awesome. Like
Mm-hmm.
gives you so much opportunity, and not that I'm like recruiting or anything, but I'm just saying my personal
No,
experience.
that's great. Yeah, it's a great testimony to come through it, and as instead of saying, "Oh my gosh, I got totally hosed." No, I feel
Yeah, no,
great.
like
They
yeah,
delivered.
yeah, like my cousin, Justin joined. Like I'm
Yeah.
so proud of him for he is like rocking it. So he,
Wow.
that's just he's a testimony for that too.
Yeah. Shout out to Justin. Maybe we'll have him on the next podcast
Yeah,
next
there
year.
you
Is
go.
Veterans Day. So you mentioned missing your family. Just talk about that a little bit. What is that? Is that one of the toughest things?
Yeah, I would say that like if I could do this job but be down the street from my family, A plus.
Yeah, and you're a new aunt. You're a new aunt. So, for instance, the sacrifice that people make is, you're a new aunt, your oldest sister, and one of your best friends in your life, right? Just had a little
Because
baby.
I have 3 sisters, so they're
You have
all
3, exactly. That's why I said one of them. Um, and and you haven't been able to see the baby yet, right? But
Nope.
you're coming home soon, and we're excited about that. But it reminds us that there are people all over the world that are sacrificing and not seeing family and being away from home, and doing those kind of things to serve and protect our country.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
well, we applaud you. Always, we're so proud of you, Shayla, and I'm
Thanks.
so glad to wrap up. By the way, the beginning of this podcast is going to be Maya singing, and then we're going to have Ed
Oh,
Finnegan,
cool.
and then you. So, yeah. So thanks. We love you,
Thanks.
and
Love you. Thanks for having me.
yep, you're welcome. Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.